So my name is Elisa del Gardo. Very quick, short background. I am a UX researcher and designer, and I've been doing that for about 25 years. So that's my perspective on things, and that's where I come from. I'm not a developer. So what I do is I do research and design. And I'm just going to talk to you a bit today, about 30 minutes today, about understanding behavior and using that as a guide to design, and using that in terms of understanding how we can persuade people to not just do what the business wants, but also to persuade them to do what they want to do. Yeah, so a little bit of a confusing bit there, but hopefully that'll become a little bit clearer as we go on. So just going to talk about 4 different things. I'm going to talk about some of the principles of persuasion, a little bit about decision making, and then some examples of projects that I've worked on from a very top level, and how persuasion came into those projects in terms of either just persuasion, straightforward, or also decision making. So one of the things that I say to all my clients or my project teams is that if when you design something, you are actually speaking a different language from your user, your customer, your visitor, whoever it is, it doesn't matter how persuasive your argument, because you're not actually speaking to them. They're not listening. It's like speaking a different language. They turn off, they don't want to hear it. So if you want to engage someone, you have to speak the same language. And in understanding what that language is, you have to do some investigation. You can't get away with not doing the research. So you have to go and understand what it is your customers are not only trying to do and what they're required to do that, and I'll talk a little bit about the difference between usability and persuasion, but also at what time is the right time for them to be persuaded, and what emotions do they need to feel in order to make decisions, and how much information they have in order to make their decisions on. So there's a lot of information we need to be able to speak to and engage our users. So how many people in here have bought a mobile phone in the last 6 months? Okay. So how many people who bought those mobile phones compared the one that you have with 20 other phones? 10 other phones? 5 other phones? Oh, okay, we got some more techno people over there in the corner. 3 other phones? 2? Just bought the one that you wanted? Well, I know there's more than that, because more people raised their hands in the beginning, so you're not being honest with me. So when you bought that phone, was it because your friend told you it was good? Okay, oh, very honest person there. Was it because you liked the way it looked? Was it because it was an iPhone? Okay, so how do we make those decisions? Yeah? So pretty much guaranteed that people didn't look at review charts, comparison charts. And, you know, as designers, we produce these all the time, you know, and how do you produce them? How do you give people the information they want? But basically, most of the people who bought a phone in the last 6 months bought one because it was an iPhone. Yeah? So how do you manage that? How do you deal with that? How do you design for that? So just a quick bit about the difference between usability, yeah, and user experience. Usability sits within user experience. We know how to do usability. Yeah? So we just had someone talking about, you know, how to do guerrilla usability and how to get that kind of information. We know how to do it. We know how to do it with huge projects, small projects. We know how to understand how to make our projects usable. But, yeah, do we always know, you know, what will make the user want to buy, click, convert, register, visit, whatever it is we want them to do? We can make it very clear that if you push this button, you can give us money. And if we're a charity, I want you to donate, here's the button, it says donate now. So they know what to do, yeah, they know what the call to action is, but how do I make them want to do that? And that's the difference between, you know, the extension of usability into user experience. So you can create a door that anyone can open, but it's creating a door that people actually want to walk through. So, some of the differences. This is from a e-commerce site called Wrap. And there's a couple things on here that I have circled. So, there's the one at the top, which is the navigation tab, which is usability. Makes it very clear where you are. Yeah? The tab is the same color as the background, very obvious where I am. The one on all the way on the right, where you're allowed to see the fabric and the detail. Yeah? So it's giving me a little bit more of a comfortable feeling about what I'm buying. I'm getting more information. Yeah? I always tell them, when I work on e-commerce sites, I always tell them about the story of my mother, who won't buy anything online because she always wanted to see the back. I'm not buying anything if I can't feel the fabric and I can't see what the back of the garment looks like. So she needs to have that information in order to make the decision. So again, we're sort of persuading them that this is actually a high quality piece of garment and it's got beautiful detail on it, and I'm allowing you to see it. And then I let you see what you're going to look like on the beach in your lovely outfit. Sometimes you get little kids in there, so you know, if you're a mom, it's like me on the beach running. So we get a bit of an emotion about, oh, I want that outfit, I want that dress, I want to be that person. And the one in the middle with the dots, I don't know how well you can see that, but that's actually telling me what colors are available and what's no longer available. So what's available in what sizes, and where the X's are in the dots means they're not available anymore. So it's a little bit of a combination between what we call persuasive design, because they're using scarcity. If you don't order now, they're going very fast. So I'm demonstrating to the visitor that if you want this, you need to buy it now because they're going. Yeah? But I'm also demonstrating to the visitor that if you want it and it's gone, the emotion that I get after I've clicked I wanted to buy it and they tell me it's out of stock and I can't have it is much stronger than when I look at this and I see, oh, I've missed the boat. Yeah? So what I'm doing is I'm giving them some information that's about usability, but it's also about scarcity and also about controlling emotions a little bit, and honesty, truth, things like that. So I can trust them to say, it's gone. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is I'm going to go through some principles and just give you some examples of some of the principles of persuasions and what we call social influence. So there's 6 standard ones that we talk about all the time. And when we design, we use these quite a lot as tools to demonstrate how we can actually change how people behave and influence them. And we all get influenced by this. I'll tell you a little story in a minute about how influenced I was by it, and even knowing it was happening to me, I still spent way too much money. So I'm going to start with reciprocation. And basically, this is a principle that says when someone gives us something, we feel obliged to return the gift, the favor, whatever it is. So when someone invites us to a dinner, if we had a nice time, we feel obliged to invite them back again. So an example here, so we have the AA website, where they're giving me free route planners. Now, for those of us who have things like TomToms and sat-navs and iPhones, we don't need these anymore, but if you don't have one of those, I can go on here and they'll give it to me for free. They'll also give me lots of other advice for free. But they're selling something. But they're not asking me to buy anything. They're giving me something for free. So I'm now liking them because they're giving me things. Yeah? So when you go into a restaurant and you go maybe a few times and then the proprietor comes and says, oh, you know, bottle of wine on the house or a drink on the house, you feel obligated to go back. Yeah? Because they've given you something. So you're creating an emotion around that where you feel obligated. One of the other ones is about authority. Yeah? So we look to experts to show us the way. Yeah? So when those people who bought their mobile phones, didn't anybody look at reviews? Anybody look in a magazine or anything like that? Did you look at what an expert had to say? Yeah? Did that help you make your decision? Yep, okay, we got a big yes back there. So it helps us to make that decision. So it could be, you know, an authority, you know, as a media service, as a radio program. Today's show on the BBC tends to have a very strong voice. It could be a person talking about what we should eat. So, you know, what do I want to cook tonight? What do I want to feed my children? So we look at authority in very many different ways. So it could be a publication, it could be a person, it could be an institution. But we look at authority to help us make decisions and influence our decisions. And Jamie Oliver, for some case, is also something that we talk about, which is liking, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. So this is actually a very old image, but I love it because this is an image about scarcity. So I don't think that this website actually does it anymore, but if you notice in the upper right-hand corner, they are counting down to how many hours and minutes you have left to buy something from their sale. Now I can tell you from my experience, when that goes to 0, they just start another sale. But you feel really, I need to buy this now because it's going away. I want that set of bunk beds for my children and it's going to go away, clearance sales on, got to have it. And look, it's ticking down. It's telling me I have to buy it. You know, the same thing when you leave things in your basket and it comes up and tells you that you have, I think 55 minutes. I just bought rugby tickets weekend before last, and I put them in the basket, and the phone rang, and it came back, and it said that, you know, they'd been in there longer than a half an hour, whatever it was, and they were gone. And I was really upset, and I went back in and I bought them right away before someone else got their tickets. So it forced me, you know, to actually make a decision. So scarcity is a really strong one. Yeah. How many people remember the images of people waiting for the iPhone, I think it was the iPhone 3, on the street where they were all sort of in the States lined up waiting to get their iPhones? That's because they only produce so many, so everybody wants them because not everybody's going to have them, so it makes you special. So liking. So this is where Jamie Oliver also comes in. Some people love him, some people hate him, but if you like someone, you know, then you want to buy their products. You know, if you like George Clooney, there's lots. I was wondering how many women would be in the audience, and I was trying to find one that might be attractive to men, but sorry guys, I couldn't find one. So I chose George Clooney instead because of his adverts. He has nothing to do with coffee, but if I like George Clooney, I might buy that coffee. I can't even remember what coffee it is, but I'm sure if I could remember, I would buy it. So same thing with Jamie Oliver. I like him. So if you like people, you want to do what they want you to do. Yeah? So that's why we use endorsements. Another one, social proof. Now this is a really interesting one. So there were loads of studies that went around where they had people stand on street corners and just look up and waited to see how long it took for lots of other people to stand around and look up, you know, or create queues. And here that works really well because people like to get in queues. It doesn't work so well on the continent, but if you see a queue, it's like, oh, I must get in the queue, whether it's your queue or not. So we look to what other people are doing to guide what we do. Yeah? So in terms of social proof, we look at things like TripAdvisor, social proof. A bunch of people said it was a great place to go. I feel safe making that decision. You know, 80,000 people have, you know, decided to switch to whatever type of insurance. I've decided to switch to that. So another one is, I don't know if any of you have ever been to Ascot, but there is no place else on earth where a bunch of women will wear hats that they wouldn't be caught dead in. And it's a real sign of social proof. Okay. Commitment to consistency. This is an interesting one. In 2011, the Fair Trade Organization showed a double-digit increase. Okay, so this is when the economy was falling through the floor, and they still were able to have an increase in their revenue. And that's because people like to be consistent to the commitments that they make and the values that they want to keep. So if you pledge to sort of, I'm going to buy fair trade, I'm going to buy organic, I'm going to be ecological, things like that, then you tend to stay with that. Another one really interesting. If you use emotion, this is from a charity site, and it's actually a very depressing picture. So studies also show us that if you are depressed and you go to do shopping on a website or any place else, you go, you get what you want, and you leave. If you show me happy faces, this is Oxfam, and you put me in a good mood, I will stay longer and I am likely to buy more. And this got me really badly on Christmas one year, because I went in to just buy a few, you know, unwrapped gifts for whoever, and I spent, probably just under £200. I bought stuff for everybody. Everybody got their gifts from Oxfam that year, because I was so engaged in the emotion. I felt good about what I was doing. Collecting, completeness. So, I don't know, who had Beanie Babies when they were little? My kids had hundreds of them, you know? And we feel a need to to collect things, you know, and you see it all the time. You see, you know, get all 12, you know, you get one a month, buy all 12, subscribe, whatever it is, you know, there's only 6 to collect, whatever it is, you know, glasses at the petrol station, McDonald's. But we have to complete things. So we feel a need to complete things. This one's power of free. People love free stuff. Give me free stuff and then ask me to do something very simple, yeah? And then again, you know, reciprocity. I'd love to have, you know, something given to me free. I'm going to go buy something from you. Again, scarcity, because it has a limit on it. This is a good one. Reinforcing, yeah, positive reinforcement. I won't ask anybody if they've been to Weight Watchers before, but what it's all about is you go every week, and whether you've gained 10 pounds or lost 15, they tell you how great you are. Yeah? Positive reinforcement, it keeps you coming back. Our fear of losing things. So that loss aversion, so if you're told that your air miles are going to come up, then you're likely to want to just take a trip because we don't want to lose those air miles that we've collected. Susceptible moments, another good one. Yeah? And this is where we do our upselling and our cross-selling. Yeah? So the guy's buying her a diamond ring, and what does the vendor do? He brings out a tray of even bigger ones. Oh, well, I'm in love, I got to spend more money. Saving for tomorrow. We are very much happier, yeah, to not spend the money now and know we have to spend it later. Buy now, pay nothing for a year. Yeah? People are much more comfortable with that. So the thing about emotions is they shape all our activity. We can't make decisions just rationally. We need the emotions to help us make those decisions. So again, you know, so the rational and the emotional mix together. But what's happening is that we can't always tell people, yeah, why we've chosen things. So this is a study that was done quite a long time ago, and you see the percentages here, and it says the percentages of people who chose a particular set of pantyhose, tights, that were better than the others. So they were in 4 tubs, people went to pick the one that they thought was the nicest or the most expensive. They were all the same. And no one could tell you why they chose the one that they had. So, you know, they said they were nicer, they were better quality, but they were all exactly the same. So you can see D, which was on the right-hand side, got picked most. So that made the decision more than anything. Users have limited attention spans. So, you know, if you know exactly what you want, you go and get it out of the supermarket. But if I don't know what I want, and you display me with 1,500 different types of toilet paper or toothpaste, how do I make the decision? Overwhelming. And what's happening now is that people are so overwhelmed with information and decisions making decisions that they actually switch to being more emotionally driven on decisions. So creating the emotion becomes even more important. So what we've done is we've paralyzed people by choice and made them actually move into just making the decision emotionally. Yeah? So something like the mobile phones, where you've got so many mobile phones to choose from, I'll just choose the one that looks the nicest, or the one that my mate has. So what I'm going to talk about now is just some examples of projects that I have done, and just give you an idea about how we, you know, put some of this into practice. So this project was an automated online ordering system for a communication system. So broadband, I think it might have had satellite, but telephones, mobile phones, the whole sort of thing. So going into an office and setting it all up. But they wanted to be able to do it online, because having someone go out or having to speak to someone on the phone costs a lot of money. So all of a sudden you can do less, and of course then you're making less money because you have the overhead of the call center. So customer needs a system. The supplier needs information, yeah, to be able to tell them what system they need. And when we tested the system and the process that people were going through, what we found is that at the very beginning of the system, it was just falling over because no one could answer the questions. The questions they were asking were not questions that the people who were ordering the phone could answer, or ordering the system could answer. They were asking them what model they wanted and how much bandwidth and all sorts of other things. And basically, it was the girl that sits in reception that was ordering the system. She has no idea. So if you change that design and turn it around to how many people are in your office? Yeah? Are they in the office all day? Do they use the phone all the time? Do you have a television in your office? Do you watch satellite? Do you need to see the new, what kinds of things do you do? Is everybody, do you download a lot of information? So starting to ask her questions that either she could answer or she could ask and get an answer to. Yeah? And then by taking that information back, yeah, and understanding what people can actually answer, yeah, and taking that information, and then as the experts, so as the vendors of the system, you then become the expert and say, okay, we understand your situation, this is what it is, and these are the 3 different types of systems we recommend for you. So there's another thing as well about how you set up menus, sort of in terms of pricing, like wine menus. They've done a lot of research on, if I put the most expensive one first, I'm more likely to buy the one just below that. And then if I turn it around, nobody ever gets down to the really expensive ones. They buy something that's actually much cheaper. So it's about how, giving people a choice. They tend to buy something in the middle because they don't want to look cheap and they don't want to look like they're spending too much money. So if you turn that around, say you have 3 choices. This one in the middle, this is what you really need. If you're on the budget, you can have this one here. And if you really want a great system that your company can grow into, you take this one. So invariably, they'll probably take the middle one, and all they really needed probably was the cheap one. But you've now broken their decision-making up into asking them questions that they can answer, and then becoming the authority by giving them a choice of 3 things. That's a small enough list of things to pick from, yes, because you're the authority, and I'm telling you that any one of these 3 choices is right, so they can't make a mistake. And then feeling very comfortable about that decision. So you instill confidence in the people who are making the decision. So another one we did is we did an online ordering system for wine. And the interesting thing about this site is it wanted to be everything to everybody. So very difficult to do that in the wine buying world, because they wanted to be the wine site of choice for people who had a very high level of expertise, and they also wanted to be the wine site of choice for people who just wanted to buy plonk, and stuff that you could cook with or you could drink. It wouldn't make a difference. After a glass or 2, you wouldn't notice. So I knew nothing about wine. And again, it went back to how do you instill trust in 2 very, very, and then there's people in the middle, but you've got 2 very, very disparate sets of users. So it was all about, how do we allow them to make the choices? How do we allow them to search? So if I'm a wine expert, I'm probably searching on the region, whether it's red or white. I'm making this up now because I'm not really that sure. But whether I want sweet or dry, or whether I want champagne. So I'm thinking more about whether I want it fruity. There's all these types of things that I think about as an expert. Now, if I'm cooking chicken, and I know nothing about wine, but I want to buy a couple of really nice bottles of wine, then I just want to say, I'm cooking chicken, I want something that's not too expensive, but isn't so cheap that I don't look like I'm cheap. Yeah? So the questions that people are asking and the way they're making decisions is very, very different. Yeah? So, showing authority, and then also looking to do that in terms of cross-selling and upselling. So, you have, for the experts, you have reviews, you have people who have a position of authority, who are wine reviewers, who publish, know all about wine, go and visit vineyards all over the world, and you have that information. That's not really of interest to me, who just wants a couple bottles of white wine to go with some chicken thing I'm cooking. But what I do want to know is that I'm going to buy 2 bottles, but now they're telling me, if I buy 6, I actually am getting it at half price, and so I'm just going to buy more. Or if I come back. So the way I'm engaging me, so I think I'm getting a great deal. The expert thinks that he's making a good choice, because most of the experts that were coming to the site weren't really experts, but they felt that they were experts. They were, kind of what we call wine snobs, but wanted to feel like they were making a good decision and wanted the information that goes with it to be able to say when they're serving the wine, this is so-and-so wine from so-and-so region, and it's got these kinds of tastes, and so-and-so recommends it. So that's the confidence they wanted. And the other people just wanted to be able to put a bottle of wine on the table that everybody didn't spit out. So kind of a different approach, but how do you do that? And it's by doing something we called, I don't know if has anybody ever used faceted navigation? Yeah? It's kind of a fancy word for cross-referencing. But that you allow people to come into the site in different ways. And you allow them to look at, this one bottle of wine might be categorized by so many different categories. But basically, it's the same bottle of wine. It's still white, it's still from a region, and it's still, a good table wine or whatever. But it allows people to come in different ways. But what you're doing is you're instilling in them confidence. Because how I make a decision is based on the information that I have and the emotion. Sometimes people just buy wine based on what the label looks like. Or I lived in France for a few years, and my husband used to send me off to the supermarket and say, whatever you do, don't spend more than 25 francs on a bottle of wine. And this is quite normal in France about 15 years ago, because you could actually get quite a good bottle of wine. But I had no idea. So I used social proof. I walked down the aisle in Carrefour, which is about 100 yards long, the wine aisle, it's very long, and I looked for where the holes were. So I looked where everyone else was buying, and then hoped that there was a few bottles left at the back. And my wine buying got better and better, because I was looking to what I thought were the experts, because the French won't buy rubbish wine. They want good wine, but they don't like to pay a lot of money for it, especially if they're shopping in Carrefour. So by following around and using social proof, I actually became much better at it. So just kind of summing up, some of the stuff that we do is really, you can't just say, oh, we're going to use, we're going to use some sort of social proof here, or we're going to use, some guidance around decision making, or we're going to use, we're going to use somebody famous to help sell our product. You really still need to understand what the business is trying to achieve, and what your users want. You need to understand where the opportunities are to upsell and cross-sell. You need to understand how to do that, and what will help to engage them. And that when you engage them with something that maybe be visually quite exciting, there's a site called Shell V-Power. Has anybody ever seen it? Any car enthusiasts in here? Like to buy really expensive oil for the car? Got the price of Bollinger? No? But it's a site that's incredibly engaging, because it's got little people, little scientists that are animated. There's all sorts of places you can go in this laboratory. There's cars going around. But when we first looked at it, there was no content behind it. So it was very engaging, but people came and they looked and they left and never came back. And the idea is that they would come back. So understanding, we got them engaged, but then we also have to keep them. So you still need to do all the research to understand, what are the problems that you're solving, both on the business side and the user side. And then create that proposition to support both. So how do I get them in, and how do I keep them there? And then also designing to support that decision making. Understand who's trying to make the decision and what they need to support that decision. And then, then designing to influence that behavior. But I think that, a lot of people have said to me, it's not so much about manipulating people. It's about understanding what people need to make their decisions, and understanding what you need to do to drive them in the direction where they're going to make the right decision. Because even if they buy your product and it's no good, or they have your service, or they visit your site and it's not what they want, they're not going to come back. So you need to also back up all those decisions with something that they really wanted to get in the first place.